In the Bible, the lepers are the people that nobody will touch. They're considered the freaks and untouchable. I am a leper. I'm a freak. See, when I was 12, I started cutting myself. And at first, it was just a ploy to get attention. But as I got older and life got harder in high school, as it does, it just became more of an addiction that sought to take over my life and destroy my very soul. In high school, I was a loner. I didn't have friends. I was this goth chick. I had the dog chain necklace with the spikes, the black makeup, the dark clothes, the black hair. I had everything. And so people avoided me because that's what I wanted them to do. But the reason I did that was because I was ashamed of who I was. I struggled with drug addiction, alcoholism, and a confused sexual identity from when I had been molested by people I thought I could trust. People who had hurt me very deeply. And I hated myself. I hated them. And so I got into the occult, and my life was consumed with the darkness and the hatred. And the older I got, the worse my cutting got. At its worst, I would have 50 fresh cuts on each arm. I have help carved into my forearm bicep. And I can remember waking up in the middle of the night with the sheets stuck to my fresh wounds. The blood ingrained into them. The sheets had become part of my flesh. And when I would roll over in the middle of the night, the sheets would rip off the scabs and open up these fresh wounds. And it wasn't uncommon for it to happen 2 to 3 times a night. I would have to sit there and bleach my sheets repeatedly to try to get the blood stains out of them. I was in a Christian college. And so to have my roommates come in and see blood all over my sheets didn't really fare well in the Christian college, as you can imagine. But I still have scars from that show today. And when people see my scars, they're visibly shocked. They wonder why someone would do that to themselves, how someone could do that to themselves. They get scared. They don't know what to expect. Throughout time, I've discovered that people think that if they came near me or talked to me about them or touched them, they would get this contagious disease of suicidal thoughts and tendencies. And they were just afraid of me. Of course, it wasn't for the reasons I wanted. But it scared people. And that caused me to lead a life of secrecy about it. I've lost jobs. I've lost positions in jobs because of my scars. It's a tough reality to face. But there's this story in the Bible about a man who wasn't afraid. And his name was Jesus. And in Matthew 8, verses 2 through 3, it says, "And behold, a leper came to him, and knelt before him, saying, 'Lord, if you will, you can touch me, and you can make me clean.' And Jesus stretched out his hand He said, I will. Be clean. And I don't think back in, that time, it gets kind of tough, because back in biblical times, if you touched someone that had a skin disease like leprosy, you were made to be a leper. Because, see, the lepers lived outside the city gates. They were ceremonially unclean, and if you came in contact with them, the rule was you were ceremonially made unclean, and you were cast outside the city gates for a purification process of 7 days or more, until you could complete the purification process and be made clean again. So when Jesus touched this man, he made himself ceremonially unclean, to where he couldn't go in the temple and worship, to where he was cast outside the city gates. And that's when I realized how much Jesus loved me. Because when Jesus touched that man, and I don't think he just touched him. I agree with my pastor, and he says that he thinks that Jesus caressed the man, caressed his shoulder, caressed his face, that Jesus touched his spots that nobody else would even dream of touching. And so I can identify with that, because I think when Jesus touched me, I think he reached out his arm and he looked at mine. He saw my scars and he caressed them. And it wasn't shock. It wasn't shame. It was a touch of love. That's when I realized how much Jesus loved me. Because Jesus took my place outside the city gate, and he became a leper. He took my scars, and he stood outside the city gate, and he told me, Rachel, go and be clean. And that's how much Jesus loves you too. Now, in 2 Corinthians 5:21, it describes this situation perfectly of what Jesus did for us. It says, for our sake, he made him who to be sin, who knew no sin, so that in him, we, you and me, might become the righteousness of God. Now, it's been 3.5 years since I've cut myself, and I know now that I'm loved, and that nothing I can do can make him love me less, and nothing I can do can make him love me more. He loves me just as I am, scars and all. And he loves you that way too. No matter what you've gone through, he loves you just as you are.